Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome. So, there's this new thing happening, at least this week, where for one, I think this is my third faceless reading that I'm recording this week. So, I do feel this deep sense of vulnerability at the moment. And when I say I feel it, I mean collectively. And there's this need to hide or to, in order to feel safe, to retrieve behind some kind of, I don't really want to say wall, or it's almost like a safety layer. I can't really think of a better way to describe it. It's like we're putting on a mask to hide behind, but mask sounds so negative in this context. And it's not that there's not the I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. There's more about I'm just not showing all of me. Like right now, I'm not showing my face. So there's something in this collective where there seems to be the need or the feeling for the need to hold something back. And this feeling is accompanied by a deep sense of sadness. And I'm actually struggling to find words. Although I know what I want to say, I know what I feel, I know what, like there's all this information I already have. I know what this message, this reading is about. But I'm kind of struggling to say it. I am struggling to find the right words. And something is holding me back. Something is slowing me down. It's hard to just say it. And you won't be hearing this in the final recording because I will edit it. But there are those long pauses between sentences, sometimes even mid-sentence. And I'm, like I said, I'm looking for words. I'm struggling to find words. And it's not like that there's not the wish to say something, or that I think that what I have to say is not important. It again feels like there's this layer on top of what? It's like there's this veil over me. And this is something I realized this whole week. For one, I think the last 3 messages that I posted are more or less about the same thing, about the same topic, just looked at it from a little bit of a different perspective, but in the end, all 3 messages basically, not said the exact same thing, but it was the same underlying topic. And whenever I tune into the collective to see if there's something that wants to be shared, that wants to come out, it's always coming back to this thing, to the same topic. And the whole collective energy in general feels very muted. It's almost as if someone turned down the volume on you. And I hear is it the desire, or is it again like the feeling of I need to lay low? There's something about feeling like it's better to just fade into the background, not to stand out too much, not to bring too much attention to myself. And so I was just like tonight, I was sitting at home, and then this sadness came over me, and I felt this heaviness in my heart space, and I tapped into it, and what I heard and what I felt was like this deep sense of being misunderstood, and this feeling of, yeah, nobody understands me. And this reminded me of a similar kind of energy that I tapped into and received actually a few months ago. And I just typed down like a few notes in my phone, and I felt like, okay, I never really felt like sharing it, to be honest. And now I just remembered this note that I have on my phone, and I checked it, and it's exactly what I'm feeling right now. This is exactly what is coming through. So I feel like sharing this with you guys, and just see if it resonates. And it ties in perfectly with, like I said, the last few messages I posted on the channel here, where there was, for one, a lot in there about how the masculine relates to the feminine, a lot about how the masculine energy is, there's a fear about showing all of the feminine. There's some struggle in trusting into the feminine intuition completely, mostly because of the world we are living in, because of how we were born and raised, what we were taught, the belief that we have to control everything, that we have to plan everything, that everything has to make logical sense. And there is a deeply rooted fear about what might happen or how we will be perceived by the outside world when we live more from the feminine, and when we express more of this sometimes seemingly weird, or I hear outlandish side that is fueled by the feminine energy, that is not just more emotional or that's very sensitive or tapped in, but it's also our magical side, right? It's the side where not everything makes sense, but it's intuition. It can be wild. It can be, in so many ways, it's so deeply felt, but it doesn't really make sense. And it's so hard to explain to someone outside of us, and especially to someone who is not familiar and connected with their own inner feminine. To people who are cut off from their own inner feminine wisdom, it's hard, really, really hard to understand someone who is connected to that side of them. And so what I wrote down in that note I have on my phone is that there is actually a fear about being associated or put in a box with a certain group of people or things or belief systems that you don't want to be associated with, but that like people just put you in a box with that because to them it's like all the same. So for me, for example, I try to be more open about what I do, that I read the tarot, that I'm a channel, that I also have mediumship abilities, but it's not so easy to openly share that and to like casually drop that in a conversation. And I do realize that, I mean, there are some people who are open to that and who get curious and find it exciting. But there are also a lot of people who they get uncomfortable. They don't know what to say. Or I just get a weird side look and then they change the topic. And it is because they don't know much about it and because they have certain ideas in their head about what it means when you read the tarot and or what like the way they think about people who claim to be a medium or to be a channel. And like many people believe this is not a thing. This is that you're making the stuff up or that you are hallucinating, or that you even are a scam. That you are somebody who has bad intentions and who wants to betray people, sell them hopes and dreams and fears and all of those things, and just like take money from people, and you're basically just scamming them. So, and of course there are those kinds of people out there, right? But again, when I'm speaking about myself, I do have, like, I used to be a very skeptical person myself until I started to awaken, and I had deeply, deeply mystical experiences that I just could not explain. I just couldn't explain them. And I'm also a very curious person by nature. And so I started to open up and to at least entertain the possibility of, okay, maybe there is something right, and maybe there is something to all of that. And I just had several experiences that kind of led me to open up more to ideas that, leave more room for things like telepathy, for example, psychism. I started to see more value in astrology. I started to learn the tarot. And at the beginning, I still explained a lot with psychology, for example. And I still do. Like, there are still many facets of all of that where I say, there are many great psychological explanations for why the tarot works or why astrology works and all of those things. But at the same time, I also see now that there is a lot more to all of that. And at some point I had what I always call like my full-blown awakening. And I was called into such a deeply mystical journey and experience. And I had suddenly all of those gifts awakening inside of me. And with every stone I turned, there were more and more things opening up for me. And my consciousness just, opened up. And I experienced so many things that, could just not be explained with logic or reason or, with anything. And I mean, all of you who walk this path of awakening, and I'm sure all of you had, in one way or another, experiences that happened to you in a similar way, like in your own unique way. But I'm sure in some way or another you can relate to what I'm saying. So for me, it was like, okay, I have this awakening, and I made it a rule for myself, and I still do, that I don't really take on ideas or concepts from external sources that I have not found for myself to be true, in a way that this knowledge came from a place of inner wisdom. And of course, sometimes you do get ideas, or you meet concepts, or you hear something in a reading where like you get this idea, or like I said, concepts, something like that, and suddenly something clicks inside of you, and suddenly something falls into place, or you are able to connect some dots. But I was always very, very careful with just adopting certain ideas, ideologies from external sources, without having this validated for myself from inside, from my own experience, from what I've learned through my own journey. And I still do that. And for me, this works very well. So I am quite confident in my own spiritual belief system, in what I've learned for myself, what kind of worldview and philosophy I have. And I am quite confident that I can, when I get the chance to talk to people, and I can explain my worldview, and I just talk with them about like the great questions of the universe, like things like, okay, what is God? Is there a God? What does it mean to be human? Who am I? What is the self? All of those basic questions. And when you approach it from this angle, and then from there, when you speak about things like unity, the one, unity consciousness, and then you expand on things like psychism and telepathy and all of those things, suddenly it does make more sense. And it's something that, people are still skeptical, but they somehow can see that there's some kind of logic behind it, or that it's not just, that this is not just wishful thinking or some kind of naive or ill-intended scam. But this takes effort. This takes someone who is open to listen and to sit down with you and to actually have a deep dive into spiritual concepts. And not everybody is willing to do that. Actually, most people are not willing to do that. Most people, when they hear something like, okay, you're a psychic, you're a tarot reader, you are anyone who's like associated with this spiritual world, or at least, it also always depends a little bit on where you're living, what kind of culture you're living in. I'm from Germany, and Germany is very, very non-spiritual in general. Like, people are very skeptical. Of course, we still do have the Catholic and the Protestant Church here as the main religions. We have Jews, we have Muslims as the other bigger religions. But still, like, when it comes to a general sense of spirituality, or like this more non-traditional open spirituality, you're very quickly put into a box with a certain group of people that are just not taken seriously at best, or, like I said before, you are very quickly considered to be someone who's a scammer. And this is a general fear that, like I said, I've been picking up on, and I think most of you, if not every one of you, can probably relate in your own unique way. Like I said, it depends on what kind of culture you are living and how society views spirituality. And of course, a society that is maybe more rooted in traditional religion has their certain views, whereas a society like the one I'm living in, which is more or not spiritual at all, actually, there are like different ways in which people push back, but nonetheless, like we all experience pushback. And so, like, we are afraid to be put in a box with assumption, like with certain people or ideas or concepts that we maybe don't even really fit in with. And so we are afraid to express our truth. We are afraid to name what we do or how we think, or so like in my case, that I don't really like telling people that I have a YouTube channel and what I do on that YouTube channel, because I know most people won't understand it. And maybe like another big thing is that there might be a fear to be considered a conspiracy theorist. Or if you are, for example, someone who's practicing energetic healing, that you are not just a scammer, but it's even dangerous what you do, because you are selling people promises of healing when they should actually go to a quote unquote real doctor. Those kind of things. I mean, those are just a few examples, but there are so many different ways in how this can show up. And so in order to not give people the wrong impression or to become object to judgment, like we hold back. We don't really tell what we do or what our beliefs are, or what we believe is true. And we don't really show all of us. And now that's hard enough, right? Like there's this fear of abandonment and of being shamed, of being an outcast. And what do the people around us think about us? What does our family and friends and co-workers, our neighbors, I don't know, like what will they think about us? Will they view us in a different way? And will they still like us? Will they still respect us? What does it change for them and for our relationships when we stop hiding and when we openly express what our truth is and what our beliefs are? And so this is hard enough. But on top of that, there is this worldwide tendency at the moment that there is an increase in the misuse of power and authority worldwide. And there are a lot of overregulations, and there are the questions of who defines what is legitimate and what is the truth. And if you don't obey, if you don't follow that truth, then there is the danger of being persecuted, of becoming an outcast, or like even being punished for not following what that system or like belief system that is in authority right now says is the truth and that are the rules that are to be followed. So what I wrote down about that is that this is actually an archetypal war between the outcast and the ruling authority and society. And this is actually an ancient fear that we still carry in our nervous systems, that our ancestors experienced. They experienced persecution for being different or not submitting to a certain system, to certain beliefs, authority, and the likes. And standing up for one's beliefs or not conforming to what's considered to be normal, there were serious consequences. One of the greatest examples is, of course, when people were persecuted for being a witch, and there were those witch trials and the so-called burning times. But it doesn't even have to be related to like really magic. I mean, it's me coming from Germany, for example. It's just 2 generations before mine that we had a totalitarian regime in this country, and people were persecuted for having different opinions, for standing up for what they believe in. And it was not just dangerous for yourself, but also for your friends and families to have a different belief system, having different ideas about what is wrong and what is right than what the ruling authority said. And all of those things are or were real dangers that caused a lot of stress and anxiety and fear that was stored in the nervous system and then handed down from generation to generation through things like epigenetics, but also in a more spiritual sense, energetically, and of course also through experiences and learned knowledge that parents will teach their children. So we have on several different layers those passed down experiences and fears and pain that we today still carry in our nervous systems. So this is not just about, oh, I'm just not brave enough to stand up for my beliefs, or I'm just too much of a people pleaser, and this is why I cannot rise above this fear or the judgment or expectations others put on me. This goes so much deeper. And I feel like there is, for one, this deep sadness about why is it so hard to live my truth? And also the sadness about feeling like I have no choice but having to hide my truth and not really seeing how this could change or how this could be any other way. And then there are, next to the sadness, those really, really deep-seated and ancient fears. And we hear people talk about the witch wound, and in so many ways it seems so abstract, and it seems like, some people think about it in the way that this is something that you carry with you from another lifetime into this life. But what there is, I perceive this as there is some truth to that, although the way I see how past lives work is not in such a straightforward and sometimes overly simplified way than we like to think about it often. For me, past lives are more ancestral really than individual, but that's a different topic. So what I want to say, because I feel like there is a part of this collective that is very much rooted in logic and sometimes has maybe a little bit of a hard time to completely accept those ideas or concepts or even ideologies around that, or at least maybe they feel like that is some kind of ideology. So I want to give you that more even like scientifically or logically grounded view on this topic in, like I said, epigenetics, and that this is something that has been passed down through generations. And when you look at like a culture like the one I live in, it's not that long ago. It's only been 2 to 3 generations. Like my grandfather, he fought in the war and he told us stories about that. So that's not that far away, right? And this is just one storyline from all the ancestors that each and every one of us has. And this is something that is scientifically proven now, that we inherit fears and trauma from our ancestors. And like I said, it's not just genetics, it's also psychologically. It's what we pass down from generations to the next, grandparents to parents to children. And we inherit all of those fears and the worldviews and the trauma. So when you are feeling those anxieties coming up and the fears coming up and the sometimes not logically explainable, very, very strong reactions to maybe your inner desire to show more of you, to be more authentic, to live your ideas or your philosophy that you have about, for example, spirituality, or how you view the universe and the cosmos and yourself, or to just express your true nature in an unlimited, free way. And when you feel that desire inside of yourself, and for many of us, this also means to step into our purpose and what we feel, what we are called to do in this life. But at the same time, there are all those fears and anxieties coming up, and they seem like they don't really make sense in that moment. Why is it so triggering to me when I put out a YouTube video, or I release a blog post, or I tell my friends that I read the tarot? Those are seemingly small things, but they can feel like this huge deal. And I can tell you, when I released my first YouTube videos, which is a while ago now, I got like the contractions I felt, the anxiety, the pain in my nervous system, everything inside my body was screaming bloody murder. And I think after I released the first one was fine. The second YouTube video that I put out, I think it took me 2 days to calm down afterwards. And I've done a lot of work before that. I've done a lot of witch wound work. I've done a lot of trauma releases, somatic releases. But this triggered me in a way I could not have anticipated. And I was stunned. And I worked a lot with that stuff. I knew a lot about ancestors' trauma and all of that. So I knew what was going on, and it still caught me off guard. And so it feels like that this message, this recording, wants to maybe connect a few dots for some of you, maybe just give you confirmation for what you already know, letting you know, hey, you're not alone. But I also feel like to maybe give some of you some perspective on all the emotions that are coming up for you, and to simply say like, hey, cut yourself some slack. This is not just a video you're putting out. This is not just a casual conversation you have with someone. This is not just, quote unquote, just stand up for yourself. This is actually trauma and fears and very, very real dangers of being persecuted that has been carried in your genetics, in your familial system. And all of that stuff is coming up when you, as someone in the 21st century who just wants to be free and just be themselves and just express their true nature and their authentic self, all of that stuff comes up. All of it. So, yeah, it's never just that. It's so much more. And this is also something that I always like to say, and that I think we tend to forget for us who are on this kind of journey and doing like all this work on our awakening journey. This is not just our own stuff that we are releasing. This is ancestral trauma that we are working through. And we are healing the generations that came before us, and we are healing the generations that will come after us. And this is also true when you don't have children of your own. This is far more connected and collective than what we often like to believe. So, yeah. I really hope this makes sense. This was one of the harder messages to record. Like I said, there were like those huge gaps in between, and I have no idea how long this will actually be because there's so much white space in between. But it kind of was, I don't know, on the one hand, this message was actually pretty straightforward for me. This is nothing that is, like, I thought about this a lot and I worked a lot with those energies, but somehow it was really hard to communicate that stuff. So this speaks to me about that there are maybe some resistance around that topic, but at the same time, like a lot of heavy energy, and that is hard to move through, to work through. And like I said at the beginning, it feels very, very vulnerable. It feels raw, very raw. So yeah, like I said, I just want you to know that you're not alone in this. You are not weird or just not brave enough, or I don't know, too much of a people pleaser. This has nothing to do with this kind of stuff. This goes so much deeper. I really want you to know that. And be kind to yourself. Show compassion for yourself. Take it slow. Take it easy. Don't push yourself too much. Of course, I mean, we need to push ourselves sometimes a little bit because otherwise we won't grow. I just heard great things never come from comfort zones. That is, unfortunately, that's true. But yeah, just be gentle with yourself. And yeah. With that being said, I wish you all the best with that. And I want to say thank you for doing it. thank you for working through that kind of energy, because it's really not easy to do that. And I can speak from experience. And yes, like always, I would love to hear from you, although I do completely understand when you choose to stay silent, because this feels very much like a very quiet space that we are in right now. So I do see that, and I just want you to know that you are felt, deeply felt. And yeah, so like I said, I wish you all the best with that. And I would love to see you, hear you in the next video. And until then, take care, my loves. Bye.